So by now you will have realized that a lot of these techniques, they come down to enticing the domain expert to come up with concepts in their domain, right? So instead of sitting them down in front of an empty piece of paper and tell them to write down what they know, which experts are not very good at, we put them in all kinds of situations where they are seduced to almost unwittingly come up with what they know. And 20 questions was like that, laddering was like that, the Think Aloud protocol was like that. And maybe the most extreme case of this is card sorting. This is something that we're also going to ask you to do for your homework. And if you come to the Q&A session, then we'll actually make a start with that. We'll make you do card sort in class so that you can use it as a start for your homework. So what's the idea of card sorting? Well, we assume in card sorting that we already have a list of ideas and of concepts, or of important concepts and notions in the domain. So that's a non-trivial assumption. It takes work to get those, but often you can even get those from textbooks. Right? So you need not have spoken to your expert in order to get such a long list of concepts. So you make a long list of concepts and you write each of the concepts on a card. Every concept, one card. And then you ask the expert to organize these cards in stacks, in piles. 3, 4, 5, doesn't matter how many, and you ask them to organize them in a stack because they somehow belong together, right? So you don't worry about why they belong together, you just ask the expert, well, put things in a stack that belong together. And then once the expert has done that, then you ask them, well, what was it that made that into a stack? Why did you put these things together? What do they have in common? Right? And then you record the collections of these groupings. Right, so you both record why they were put together and you record which ones have been put together. And once you've done that once, you do it again. And if you've done it again, you do it again. And you keep doing that until the expert really runs out of steam. And actually you keep doing it beyond the point when the expert says they're running out of steam. So you really push the expert beyond the point where they think, oh, I've now organized these cards into 17 different ways in different stacks in a way that they belong together. And then you ask them to do it again the 18th and the 19th time, because they will still come up with interesting ways of grouping. And this may sound a little bit abstract. So let's do this in an example. And as I said, we'll also do this in class. Right? So let's take an example, animals. Okay, so here are stacks of cards on animals, right? So there's a cards for wolf and sheep and fish and herring and sharks and bears and cows and cats, and also some food thingies, animal related things like grass and wheat and a tree. And now the question is, how would you put these things together? Okay. Well, any idea how you would put them together? We're all an expert in this domain. This is everyday common sense knowledge. So here is one way of putting them together, right? So we take horse, sheep, cat, wolf, cow, dog, bear. And why did we put them together? Well, of course, because they're all the animals. And we took the grass, the tree, and the wheat together because they're all the plants. And we took the herring, the goldfish, the trout, and the shark because they're all the fish. Okay, so from going from this set of unordered cards on the table and just reordering them into 3 stacks and asking the expert, well, why did you order them? We've learned 2 things. We've learned that there is such an abstract notion as animals, plants, and fish. Those are 3 distinctions that weren't on our cards, but they emerge from the way the expert put the cards in the stacks. And not only have we learned that there are this distinction in these 3 types, but we've also learned which is in which type. So we've learned that dog is animal and not fish, and we've learned that herring is fish and not plant. Okay, so that was one way of putting them in a stack, or in 3 stacks. So can we do this again? Well, we could put sheep, trout, shark, herring, cow, and wheat together. So clearly this is no longer a plant-animal distinction, right? Because wheat is in the same group as cow and shark and herring. But if we look at the other group, things like horse and bear and dog and grass, then we can realize that, or our expert will tell us that, oh, I've now put all the foods together and all the non-foods together. So stuff that people eat and stuff that people don't eat. So sheep and trout and wheat is stuff that people eat, and horse and grass and dog is stuff that people don't eat. At least not in Europe. So again, now this is the same cards that we had on our first slide. Right, the same cards, but now we've not organized them in this way, but we've reorganized them into some other way. Let's see if I have a third example. Yes, here's another example. So I now put shark, wolf and bear together, and then the rest. So what's common between shark, wolf and bear? They're exactly the animals which are predators, whereas all the other ones are either non-predator animals or non-animals at all. So now we've identified a single new concept, namely predators, and which animals are actually predators. And you see that with only, we had 10 cards here on the table. And with just those 10 cards, reorganizing them in different ways, we've organized them in 3 different ways. And we've learned 4 different concepts. We've learned the concept of predators, and therefore the non-predators. We've learned the concept of food and non-foods, and we've learned the concept of animals, plants, and fish. Right. So, and we didn't ask the expert any explicit questions like "give me categories in your domain," which they find difficult, but we just asked them to sort cards. Which ones of these belong together? And you can keep doing this many, many times. You'd be surprised how many times you can keep doing this and how many concepts appear. And you'll notice that not every card has to appear in a stack. Right? So there could be stacks where you have your 10 cards, and actually in practice you will have more than 10 cards. Maybe you do it with 15 cards or 20. I mean, don't do it with 100. But if you take your dozen or so cards, and then maybe 4 of them go in one stack, and 6 of them go in another, and 2 of them they don't belong anywhere. That doesn't matter. Because you've learned that there are 2 different concepts, and you've learned that 6 things belong to one and 4 things belong to the other. That was the point of the game. The point was not to exhaustively categorize everything. So it was fine if there are some leftover cards. Now here you could argue that there is only the class of predators and then the rest. Right? Maybe it would make sense to classify cow as a non-predator, but it wouldn't make sense to classify weeds and trees as non-predators. So this is really the rest category that we didn't classify. Okay. So you keep doing this over and over and over again. And then finally the expert runs out of steam. And when finally the expert runs out of steam, you can still get more knowledge out of them by switching to another card trick called the 3-card trick. So this is not card sorting, but the 3-card trick. And what do you do with the 3-card trick? You take 3 random cards and you ask them if you have to answer the question which 2 belong together. Which one are more similar than the other? Okay, now here in this example, I've done cat, sheep, and bear. Okay. Now, which are more similar and which are different? Cats, sheep, and bear. Well, our expert may say, well, cat and bear are somewhat similar, and sheep are very different. Why? Because of the type of skin that they have. Maybe cats and bear have fur, and sheep have wool. Okay, so just by asking of those 3 random cards, which 2 belong together, which are more similar than the other, you get another category. And you keep again repeating this. So we could even take the same cards. So we had the cards of cat, sheep and bear, and we grouped cat and bear together. Now we ask the same question again. Again we take the same cards, namely cat, sheep and bear, and we say, is there another way of thinking there is an odd one out? Well, yes, because maybe you could also think that the bear is the odd one out. Because cat and sheep are domesticated and bear is not domesticated. So even with this 3-card trick, with just 3 random cards, we learned 4 different new concepts. Namely, 2 different ways in which 2 cards were more similar than the 3rd card. And so again, this is a very useful a mechanism for teasing knowledge out of domain experts. And again, one that is rather low in cognitive load on the expert, and one that they actually find rather entertaining and amusing to do. So it's warmly recommended, and we will make you do this as part of your homework.